Software ID is a very necessary equipment or a tool for any developer in the market. Without a software ID, obviously you won't be able to write the code. Now, there are so many software IDs in the market available, right? Now, if you want to write a code for Python or Java or C language or any of the front-end language, you can use Notepad and you can use command prompt to run that. But will it help you? The meaning to say this is, if you're writing the code in Notepad, are you enjoying writing it? Are you actually feeling that vibe when you write a code? No, right? Because it doesn't provide you all those features and all those libraries, built-in things in your hand. But a software ID does that, and in a very simple manner. Now, today we are going to talk about a particular software ID which is used globally and it is for free. Also, this particular ID can be used for any language whatsoever. Now, what is the importance of this particular ID and why we are going to talk about it? You are going to learn in this particular video. This particular ID name is Visual Studio Code. And that's what we are going to talk about in this particular video. So Great Learning has come up with this particular video on Visual Studio Code. So watch this particular video till the end to gain some knowledge and some important aspects of this particular software ID. So without wasting much time, let's go to our Google and let's download and start installing this particular software ID. Before we get started, I want to introduce you to Great Learning Academy, a free initiative by Great Learning. You can access over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on trending high demand domains absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion. Check out the link in the description of the video below. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoy this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing. So make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video, any queries or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments. So now that we are in our Google, let's type down here Visual Studio Code and let's write download. Once you do that, you will be able to see the first link, which is code.visualstudio.com. So you have to go to code.visualstudio.com and you have to click that particular download button. Which operating system do you have? So I am having Windows 64-bit. So I'm going to click on the user installer 64-bit. Okay. And this will get downloaded. You can see the exe file is getting downloaded. Now, this particular file will take some time to get downloaded. Meanwhile, what we can do is, so go back to downloads. Now here you can see whatever system properties or whatever OS you have, you can download it from here. Okay, if you have Mac OS, you can just click on this universal, and here, if you see, we have something called as docs. Now, if you click on docs, you will be able to see the whole theoretical aspect, whatever Visual Studio team has given us. So obviously Visual Studio is from the Microsoft. So the Microsoft team or the developers have already given us a guide of what this Visual Studio Code is and how you can actually get started with it. Okay. One more thing, guys, that this particular docs file is containing in a GIF manner. That means all these images are basically coming up as a GIF. So it will be movable and you can actually see all the things happening. Now, suppose if I go to this Python and you can see the Python tutorial, how to use and write Python codes in Visual Studio Code. So the whole thing is written here. Obviously, now this whole thing, for you to read all these things will take so much of time, right? So that is why you have this particular video. Now what I'll be doing, we will be downloading and installing Visual Studio Code, and one by one we'll be writing some of the Python codes and some of the front-end language codes, and we will see what is this IDE can do. That means what all features it provides and what all amazing things we can actually do using Visual Studio Code. Now, this particular document is just for your reference. If you want to watch it and learn from here, you can actually go and you can actually watch it out. But right now, what we'll do, we'll install our Visual Studio Code. So this is downloaded. Let's double click on it and let's open this up. Once it is open, it will tell you that, one window will appear for the installation. So let's install that. You have to accept the agreement and you have to click on next. Once you click on next, don't do any changes in any of the files and folders. Whatever is kept here, it's perfect. So don't change anything. I'm not changing anything. I just want to create a desktop icon. So I'm just going to tick on that. That is also optional. If you don't want to create a desktop icon, that is totally fine. Clicking on next and then clicking on install. Once you click on install, this will start getting installed. Now, till the time it is installing, you can see here you have the updates also available. The extensions is also available. Now, what is extension? Let's first understand this, because once we will jump into Visual Studio Code, then we will be seeing how to download and how to install these extensions, right? So we will talk about these extensions again in our Visual Studio Code, but let's first see what our Microsoft developers has given us. So these extensions are basically the whole and soul of your particular Visual Studio Code. That means, now suppose if you're writing an HTML code, okay? Now, obviously, you don't want that you are writing the whole code on your own. You want that your software IDE should give you some options of the code, whatever you are trying to write. So suppose if you are writing HTML tag, you write only HT and it is giving you some options that, HTML tag or HTML, what you want to write. So all these different aspects will be given by an extension. Now, if you look here, you can see here, these are the extensions which Visual Studio family or Visual Studio Code family actually provides you. Okay, so you have C, C++ extension, Python extension. What is the meaning of it? The meaning of this is, if you download Python extension, then if you're writing a code on Python, okay, it will be much easier for you to write. How? So if you're writing printing a statement in Python, you don't have to write completely the print statement. The Visual Studio Code IDE will give you some statements already. You can just have to choose from that, and once you choose from that, the print statement will come automatically. I will show you that once we will go to our Visual Studio Code. So these are some of the extensions which you can see here. Most popular ones are these. We will be downloading and installing some extensions and we will be using it, so don't worry. Now let's see if our particular Visual Studio Code is installed. Yes, it is installed, and it is said that launch Visual Studio Code. So once I click on finish, it will open up my Visual Studio Code. Now this is how my Visual Studio Code actually looks like. So don't worry, you can actually close this. There's no such important thing there. First of all, you will see this particular window, which is the welcome page. Okay, now in this welcome page, already there are so many things. One by one, let me tell you what are these things. So in this particular welcome page, you can see there are so many things which is available. Like we have this start, and then we have recent, we have help, and we have so many things, so many buttons and all, right? Now one by one, what we will do, we will see all these buttons, what does it say, and what other features this VSC provides us. Okay, now before that, what we are going to do, we are going to first click on interface overview. Now what is this interface overview? If you can see here down, this interface overview is nothing but something which Visual Studio Code or the Microsoft team provides us with the overview of this particular user interface. So what all things are there in this particular user interface? These all things will be mentioned when you click on interface overview. So let's click on that and let's see what all things will come up here. So if I click on it, you can see a very good explanation is given for all the buttons which is there in our Visual Studio Code. And if you can see, there are 5 things on the left hand side corner, which is nothing but the first one is File Explorer, the second one is Search Across Files. That means you can search any of the files from here. The third one is the Source Code Management. The fourth is Launch and Debug. The fifth one is Manage Extensions. Now, what are these things? One by one, we are going to go there and we are going to look upon it. And we will see one example of each one of these, how it is working. The next one, if you can see, is Find and Run All Commands. That means there'll be a search bar, something like that will come up. And when you click on it, and you can change the color theme of this Visual Studio Code, or you can change the extensions, you can download the extensions, you can do whatever you want for this Visual Studio Code UI from this particular Find and Run All commands. Okay, now these commands, do not get confused that these commands are the coding commands. No, these commands are basically the Visual Studio Code commands, that what all things you can do inside Visual Studio Code. I will show you very soon 1 or 2 examples of how we can do that. Down, you can see that blue colored line is called as the status bar, and in the status bar we have so many things. If you can see here on the left hand side, we have the 2 symbols, which is one is the cross sign and one is the warning sign. So those are the errors and warnings. So if in your code you have any errors or warnings, those will be shown here with the line of code. That means in which particular line the code is wrong, that particular line will be also mentioned in this status bar. The next is on the right hand side corner, you can see the show notification thing is there. That means if Microsoft is coming up with any updated version of Visual Studio Code or any updated version of any extension, all these messages will come up in this particular notification. You can read and go through those notifications. Once you're done with it, you can download or install, and that's it. The most important part is nothing but this toggle integrated terminal, which can be opened using Control plus backtick. What is this backtick? The backtick is nothing but a symbol which you can find it in your keyboard just above the tab key. So above the tab key, you can find a key which you can press, and that is called as backtick. So if you click on Control plus backtick, it will open an integrated terminal of Visual Studio Code. What is this terminal? So basically, I have told you that if you write a code in Notepad, you need a terminal to run that particular code, right? That means you need to open a CMD, which is a command prompt. You need to write the codes and you need to run that particular program, whatever you have written in your Notepad, right? The same thing happens here. Visual Studio Code comes up with its own terminal, which is also called as integrated terminal, which you can open by Control plus backtick. I will show you very soon, right away, how to do that. These are some common things which is there in Visual Studio Code. Now let me click on the center and let's create a new file and let's see how we can do that, because obviously the code should be written in a new file, right? And how to create it? So you can see here there's a new file link here. You can just click on it, and as you can see right now I can write any code whatever I want, but the problem is that it is looking very small, right? And for you, most of the people, it is barely visible, right? So as you can see, when I was in the welcome page and when I clicked on interface overview, most of the things here in Visual Studio Code is having some shortcut keys. Like for all of these in yellow color, some shortcut keys are mentioned, right? That's the best part of Visual Studio Code, because when you're working with a particular software IDE, you want your hands to be free. That means you don't want to go and search for the items in your IDE, that where is what. If you have a habit of remembering your shortcut keys and to be very fine with you, if you can see here, Control plus Shift plus P is the find and run all command. So what I can do, Control plus Shift plus P, and I am getting my commands here. One thing I will show you here, if I write here theme, you can find color themes here, right? Now from the color themes, I can choose whatever color themes I want. The light one, if you can see, is giving me this particular kind of thing. And the same way I can choose any other theme and it will change that. So if I click on Monokai, which is nothing but the same kind of color which was before. Now let me select a different kind of theme and show you. So you can also do this thing. You can experiment which color, particular color you want in your Visual Studio Code. There are so many colors which you can work with. Now let's skip this color for now, okay? And was just telling you that how you can actually open your command, right? Now if I go here, you can see, okay, this was very small, right? That was our problem. So what we can do, we can do Control plus and it will zoom in to my code. Okay, so it is zooming into my code and you have many such features which you can find it here in your command. Okay, let me change the color theme, which it's very bluish. So let me change it to Monokai itself, and now it's looking perfect. Now if you see here, my codes are not coming in a colored manner, right? And it is not showing me the proper code also. If I write HTML, it should show me some options that there is a tag called as HTML, right? It is not showing me that. Why? The problem here is that your file is not saved. For saving, Control S you can do and you can save it. Let's suppose if I save it in my HTML live session folder. I'll just make it session1.html and I'll save this. Once you're saving it and once you're writing now you can see the whole code is coming in a colored manner, and also you're getting the extensions. You're getting that what you're trying to write. You can select that and it will be done automatically. Now, a very good thing about Visual Studio Code. If you look here, an HTML code is having its skeleton, right? That means the whole code, there are some codes of HTML which is permanent. You have to write it. Now Visual Studio Code gives us a feature to write that without wasting much time. You have to just put a exclamation mark. Once you put that exclamation mark and hit enter, the whole code, the skeleton of the HTML will be written in front of you. So it is providing me the whole skeleton of HTML code right here. So you don't have to actually write the whole code from scratch. Everything is done by Visual Studio Code. You have to just put an exclamation mark and you have to hit enter. The same thing is done for many other languages, but right now we'll stick to this particular HTML. Now, if you look here, I was trying to tell you that what are these 5 things, right? So let's see one by one what are these 5 things and what does it do. So if you click on the first one, that is called as the File Explorer, that means your all files and folders will be seen here. Now if you can see, if you remember, I saved my session1.html in HTML live session folder. So if I click on it, I can actually close the folder. If I open it, I can actually open the folder and I can see all my files are here, right? Now, let me do one thing. If you can see, I have calculator.html, clock.html, session.html, session1.html, style.css, some to-do list.html. I have these many files in my folder. If you can see, there are 5 icons which is showing here, right? When I click on this first one, it is nothing but the new file. So I can create a new file very easily, just writing it and hitting enter. That's it. Now all my new file is created and it is placed inside this folder. You don't have to go to the file explorer, the real file explorer, and you have to check it. No, you can do it from here itself. So it's really very easy. You can work along with one folder and all your files can be kept here as well. Also, what all files are open in your editor, you can see here open editors, what all files are there. Session 1, calculator, and session 2. These all files also you can see here. So you can directly access from here itself. Right now I'll be closing this open editor and I'll be showing you the next icon, which is the new folder. If you click on new folder, suppose I want to keep here all my Python files. So I'll create a folder Python files. Now inside this Python file folder, I want to keep some more files which is Python oriented. So I'll click on new file and I will write here session.py and this is my Python file now. Okay. Now I can write here my Python program. So I can write here import and all, whatever you want. But as you can see, when I'm writing my import command, this import is not working. It is not showing me the extensions, right? Because my Python extension is not installed in Visual Studio Code. Now, how to do that, right? So a very simple thing is there. As you can see, we have the last portion here, which is called as extension. Now, if you go there, you can just search here the extensions which you want to work with. So if you click on Python, you can see here, this is the Python extension. Let me minimize this a little bit. And you can see here, this install button is there. Once you install it, that means you are installing your Python extensions because you want to write a Python program into Visual Studio Code. It will take a little bit of time, but once it is installed and then you refresh your Visual Studio Code, so you can see Python extension is now installed. Some features might not be available until a notebook or interactive window session is restarted. That means let's restart our Visual Studio Code. So what we will do, we will close our Visual Studio Code and we will open it again, because we've just installed a new extension, right? So we are just refreshing, just the way how you update your system and then you restart your system, right? The same thing we have done here. And now you can see here there's a run button coming here, and my Python is also seen here. If you can see here, it is telling me that it's a Python file. If I go to my HTML, you can see it is telling me it is an HTML file, right? So Visual Studio Code knows that what are you writing basically. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to write import statement, and you can see now I am getting that import thing, and I can import and I can print whatever code I want from my Python. Now how to run this or how to open my terminal? If you remember, Control plus backtick will give me my terminal. When I click that, it is opening my terminal. Not only the terminal, but with that we have four things. We have problems, output, debug console, and terminal. Now let's run this code. How to run it? If you can see here, you can see run Python file in terminal. One button is there, which is really very easy to run any of your Python command. You have to just click on it. Once you click on it, and in the terminal you can see it is printing me hello world. Correct? Now, what is the difference between this output and this terminal? Why there are two things? Why there's an output and why there's a terminal? How I can get my this output in the output? Why am I not getting in the output? Why am I getting in the terminal? To get the output of hello world in the output, what you have to do, you have to install one of the extension which is called as Code Runner. So if you install this Code Runner basically runs your code in the output section. Now this is not necessary, but I'm just showing you that you can install this particular Code Runner, and once you then click on the button, it will show you your output here. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that there are so many other extensions which Visual Studio Code is giving you an option which you can download and you can use it. It just works like your Play Store. In your mobile, you have your Play Store. You can download whatever apps you want and you can use it in your mobile, right? Same thing happens here. So this particular bar, which is also called as extensions, this is nothing but something like a Play Store. Okay. Now we have understood so many things about Visual Studio Code. Now let's go one by one and look upon what are other things which we can see. Second one is the search. So that means if I search here anything, let's write print. If I write print, so you can see here from all my other files, it is searching the print statement and is telling me that here is the print statement which you are searching for. So suppose if you have a very big code and you want to search one particular thing from that big code, you can just search here. Also, Visual Studio Code provides a feature to replace. So if you want to replace your print statement with printf, you can do that. Okay. Now, next you can see here, this is nothing but your source control. So this is mostly for your GitHub things. So if you know how to use Git and if you know how to create a repository in Git, then it is a very good thing for you. If not, then we can move ahead, because I think that you guys are beginner who are watching this video, then it is not of any use for you. So let's go to run and debug. What is this run and debug? It will debug your particular code. So if I click on run and debug, this is telling me to which file you want to debug. I want to debug my Python file, and slowly it will take you to particular terminal or a console where you can actually debug your code. So I can select one particular command, and this is my breakpoint, and I can start my debugging. So I will start my debugging, and you can see one by one this particular thing will be debugging my whole code. Okay, so right now this only one line of code, so it is not showing much of the things, but yes, this is how you can actually debug your code. So let's move ahead. Here in the extension, as I told you, you can actually download any kind of extensions, whatever you want from this particular extension. So if I remove this, you can see here what all things is already installed are here, and the recommended ones are here coming, which is the Docker. So for Docker extensions, if I want to use, I can install this Docker thing. What is an extension? Extension provides us the feature of telling Visual Studio Code that I am going to write a code in Python. So give me all the commands and shorthand properties of Python. So if I'm writing any command in Python, it is giving me all the options here, right? The same thing is happening from my HTML. If I write here HTML code or H1 or H2, it is giving me all the options here. That is what is nothing but your extension. By default, HTML extensions are always in Visual Studio Code. For other like C or C++ or Java, you can see here, if I write here C, you can see C and C++ extensions are there. There are so many different extensions. You can use whichever you want. Then if I write here Java, you can find the Java extensions as well. Okay, so if you're downloading Java extension and you're writing system.out.println, you don't have to write the whole sentence system.out.println. You have to just write sys, and once you do that, it will show you that particular sentence. You have to just click on it and it will be done, right? One more very important thing, if you can see, it is giving me a number here 2. Why it is giving me a number 2? Because my 2 files are there which is not saved in my console, in my platform. So if you can see here, there are 2 dots coming here in these 2 files. That means these 2 files are not saved. So I can save it. Once you save it, this particular thing will gone away. Okay. Now, these all were the basic things which is there in our particular Visual Studio Code. Now these are the 5 things. Now if you want to go to that welcome menu again, you have to click on help and you have to go to welcome. Once you click on it, this particular welcome menu is opening. I will close this particular terminal, and let me close this file explorer also. And now we are going to talk about the shortcuts. Now if you look here, there is something called as the printable keyboard cheat sheet. Okay, if I click on it, it will take me to the browser and it will actually give me a PDF kind of thing where all the shortcut keys cheat sheet is written here. If it is very small, if you can't see it, I'll just zoom in. So you can see here Control plus Shift plus P, which I was using to show the command palette. Control plus P will quick open, Control Shift plus N. Like this, you have so many other commands, the shortcut keys for Visual Studio Code. What you can do if you are a very big coder or if you want to become a developer, what you can do, and if you want to work with Visual Studio Code for your whole life, what you can do is you can download this particular PDF and you can just paste it somewhere. So what will happen, you will actually get very easy a walkthrough of what all these are there, and once you look at it and once you use it, you'll get a habit of using this very frequently. So it'll be very easy for you to do the coding. Control N new file, Control O open file, Control S save. These all things are written here. Okay. Now, one more thing, if you can see at this gear section, if you can see, there is always a keyboard shortcut, right? So if you click here, from here also you can find all the commands for all the keyboard shortcuts. Okay. Now, let me show you some things which is very, very beneficial in this particular Visual Studio Code. So if I open one of my code, if I suppose open calculator.html, okay. Now in this calculator.html, what I can do, if you see here, so there are some codes here which is very common, right? If you can see type button, type button, type button, everything is type button here. and everything is on click here, right? Now suppose this particular function, which is dis, I want to change this function. I want to change the name of this function. So what I can do? I can write here, write display. Then again I have to change here display, right? Again and again I have to do it like some 10 times, right? That is very time taking, and a very good developer don't want to waste their time. So what we can do here is you can hit Alt and you can click on all these places where you want to change your function. Let's suppose I'm choosing this much. Now what I can do, I can write here, and once you write, it will change everything in all the other places. Very cool, right? That means you don't have to actually waste time and change your command everywhere one by one. You can actually hit just Alt and click on it and everything will be happening by its own. Correct? One more thing. Now, if you have a look here, this TD, right? This TD is a tag, correct? Now, if you look here, if I click on TD, all my TDs are getting clicked, correct? You can see here it is showing me a different color. If you look here, if I am clicking here, here also it is showing me a different color, right? Why is it so? Because that's an opening tag and that's a closing tag. Now what I can do is I can do Control plus D, and I can click on these all commands. Okay, so you can see here what I've done. I have clicked on Control D and 27 selections are done. If you see, okay, so like that you can select. Let me select it again. So Control D, I selected. So one by one you can see it is selecting all my TD commands. Okay, now what I can do is I can at once I can change all of these TDs. So I can remove and I can write TH. So change is happening in all of them. Right? Now all my TDs are converted to TH. If you can see. This is happening with the shortcut key of Control plus D. Right? So you can see how easy it is to change your commands or to change your tags, right? Using Visual Studio Code. Okay. So now these kind of shortcut keys, you can find it obviously again in your keyboard shortcuts. Let me show you from where you can find. So if you see here, Control plus D, if you look here, it is written here, add selection to next find match. Add selection to next find match. So that is what was happening. Also, suppose Control D is very hard for you to, remember or to do it. You can edit that. Whatever combination you want to try, you can do that. Control plus, let's say I want to have F. 9 existing commands have this key binding. 9 more commands are having this kind of binding. So you can't use that. So like that, you can actually change your commands. Okay, you can actually modify your own commands. So that is also there. It is just like a gaming console. In any of the game, when you play, you can actually modify your own commands, right? You can make use of WASD, those keys, or you want to use your up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, or right arrow, right? I prefer WASD. So it is upon me how I can modify my particular keys. And the same thing happens here. Okay, add cursor above or add cursor below. So what is that? Control plus Alt plus up arrow. Let's try that. Control plus Alt plus up arrow. So you can see here, it is selecting my all commands. The same thing what I was doing with Alt. Okay, so it can be deleted also. You can see. So things are happening in all of them. So these are some keyboard shortcuts. Now obviously this will come up handy with you when you're practicing, when you're actually writing a code or you're building something, correct? Okay. Now there are many keyboard shortcuts. Now showing you these one by one will actually be very hectic. So better thing for you is to practice these commands slowly every day. One particular shortcut key you can remember, and you can use it whenever you're writing a code. Now quickly I want to show you one more thing in this Visual Studio Code which is really very productive. What is nothing but if you are opening clock.html, let's suppose. Now you can see here there is a symbol here which says split editor right. So if I click on it, one more editor is opening here which says clock.html. Okay, so I can close the clock.html from here and I can actually code in this particular code also, and I can also code in this particular code also. So it becomes very handy when you're working with two particular codes. Now remember, in a front-end language, when you're working with your front-end part, you have three files: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So what I can do is I can drag this style.css and I can just put it here, and you can see now I have my style.css in this particular file. I have my calculator.html, okay, session2.html. One second, let me close this. So I have my calculator.html. Let me put it somewhere here. Okay, so you can see you can just drag and you can keep it wherever you want. I actually want to put it somewhere above it. It's not going. Let's keep it here. Okay, 1 second. Let me split this also. Okay, so I have my calculator.html, style.css, and clock.html. Now if you have a bigger screen, right, like mine one is on just a normal laptop right now, so if you have a bigger screen, you can actually see the whole code and you can keep all your windows very broadly, right, and you can see all your codes, the calculator, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, everything very finely, and you can work along with it together. So meanwhile, if you're changing your HTML, you can change your CSS also. You can see the effect in your web browser. Then again, you can change your JavaScript and you can see your effect in your web browser. So actually, overall, it makes your life very easy when you're working with Visual Studio Code. Now, talking about these many features, let's come to some of the portions which we have not talked about. So if you look here, we have this terminal option, which is nothing but clicking on new terminal will give you the fresh terminal, okay, a new terminal. Now clicking on split terminal will open the another terminal. So just the way we have opened this particular HTML documents, our platform one by one, so the terminal also is now two terminals. Okay, so also you can choose here which kind of terminal you want. You want a Python, you want a Python debug console. Okay, so right now I have there are four options. You have your split terminal key also here, so you can just press that and it will be splitted. If you want to delete that, you can delete one by one, right? If you want to open the terminal whole, you can click on this arrow. If you want to go down, you can click on that. If you want to close it, you can close it. For terminal, again, we have the run task. If you want to run your particular command, you can run it. You can run it from the button also, which is coming here. For HTML, it is not showing me any button. For Python files, it will show me a button which you can see here. Or you can right click and you can go to run current file in interactive window, right? Or run Python file in terminal. If I click on Python file in terminal, my Python file is running, right? Now run will always, you know that run will always give you the running options. So these are some options. And view, you can also open the extension from here. You can also open the Explorer from here. These 5 things are nothing but these 5 things. These 5 things are written here. So it's very easy to access from here. Don't go to run view and then open it. Command palette also you can open it from here, or you can use Control plus Shift plus P. From the command palette, actually we can open anything, whatever you want. So you can see here, if you want to add cursor to bottom, you want to add cursor to line, and these are the shortcut keys which is coming up here, right? You can see here. Okay, now let's understand one more thing, one amazing thing about Visual Studio Code, and let's then finish this particular video. So if you go to this gear part and if you click on settings, in the settings you can actually see a lot of things. Now let me open this particular screen. in a broader manner so that you can see all your settings. So if you see here in the settings, we have two things. We have the user settings and we have the workspace settings. Now, if you see here, user and workspace, everything is same, right? So what is the difference? User setting is nothing but the system setting. So in your whole system, whatever user system you want to do, you can do it. Now see, there is something called as file autosave, right? Controls autosave of dirty editors. That means if you're clicking in, if you're doing it as on focus or on window or on after delay, what will happen? Your file will be saved automatically. So if I do it like after delay, so after some time, your file will be saved automatically. You don't have to worry about it. So let's suppose if I'm writing here print and if I'm writing, let's say something, okay? Now, if I go back, if I come here, it is already saved. This file is already saved. Okay. Now, like that, we have so many other options. The font size. Let's say if I want to give here like 18. Okay. So the font size will, change. Now, 1 second. We have to open it again. So what we will do is, once you will change this, right? Let me write here 25. And you can see here, there's this open. You can see here open settings JSON. Once you open that, you can see here, this is the file. If you see here, I have written font size 25 and that is what is coming here. Okay. So whatever you will do, whatever changes you will do in your settings, those all changes will be coming up in a JSON format and writing it here. Okay. So zoom level is -2. I have just changed it. Control plus it is -1. Again, I have changed it. So now it is the perfect one. If I do it again, see the values are changing because I am changing my settings, right? So that is what is nothing but your user settings. Okay. Now, these all things are for your user settings. So font family, if you don't want these, you can remove these. Tab size, then white spaces, cursor style. There's so many things you can go through and you can change it. But I will say that don't change the user settings. If you want to change, go for workspace settings. So in the workspace, same things are there. Now see, if I change this to 18, you can see here some changes came, right? Now if I click on it, there will be a different JSON file for my workspace. So my workspace font size is now 18. It is not the default one. I have changed it. If I make it 50, here also you will see this will be changed. You can see now my editor size, font size 50, it is very big now, right? Earlier it was less. If I make it now very small, let's say 8, have a look here. Can you see? This is like very, very small. Correct? So these are the settings which you can do. You can change whatever you want to change. Now, if I go down, you have many such particular commands which you can do. Like you can see here, there's something called as drag and drop. So controls whether the editor should allow moving selections by drag and drop. Do you remember what I did? I was playing with this command and I just session2.html, if I drag it, I can put it anywhere, wherever I want, right? How this was happening? Because in my settings, my drag and drop command is turned on. So that is why it is happening, right? So these are the settings which you can change in your editor, your cursor, your whatever you can choose from your formatting. From the formatting part, if you want to change some things, you can change it from here, right? So this is all about your settings portion from your Visual Studio Code. These JSON files are really very important when you're working with your settings, when you're changing some settings in your Visual Studio Code. Okay, now in the status bar, you can find out that it is telling me which Python version I have installed in my system. Is there any warning or error or not? Which line number I have clicked on. If I go down, you can see the line is increasing. Spaces, how many spaces I have given. If I give some, if I go to another column, it is increasing my column. Correct? Now, which particular encoding technique you are using? You are using UTF-8, Unicode Transfer Format 8-bit. Then which particular language you're using? You're using an HTML language here, and here you're using the Python. And here it's the tweet feedback. That is not important. Here is the notification. If I click on it, it is saying changes to settings are saved automatically. Remember, I changed this particular thing to automatic. So all my programs are now saving it automatically. So as you can see, we have talked about Visual Studio Code about for a long half an hour, and you must be now understanding how easy it is to work with Visual Studio Code. Now, let's not talk about the Visual Studio Code, but let me give you an idea that what and why this Visual Studio Code is so much important for any beginner fresher. Now, suppose if you're working with Sublime Text Editor or Atom, then obviously you can only work with one specific language when you're working with those editors, or maximum 2 programming languages, right? And you don't have so much features which our particular Visual Studio Code provides, right? Now, these extensions which Visual Studio Code is providing, these are not provided by any of our IDEs, right? Our other software IDEs, but Visual Studio Code does that, correct? Same thing goes with your Visual Studio. Now understand, Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code is two different things, okay? So you need to understand when you're downloading and installing anything. Now, if you're writing Visual Studio download, now that's another thing. That's another software IDE, which is mostly used for your .NET enterprises, okay? You don't have to download this. When you're working with Visual Studio Code, you have to write completely Visual Studio Code download, which I did in this particular part. As you can see, I've written Visual Studio Code download, right? What is the difference between both of them? Now, Visual Studio Code is a lightweight, software IDE, okay? But when you talk about Visual Studio, that is also an IDE, but it is mostly used for .NET frameworks or C# coding, okay? So there is a lot of change when you're working with these both software IDs. So you need to be very focused when you're downloading any software. Obviously, both these softwares are from Microsoft, but here in this particular tutorial, we have talked about Visual Studio Code. Okay, when you're working with Sublime Text Editor, if you're a beginner, very good to go. You can use Sublime Text Editor because it is really very easy to use. But make a habit of using Visual Studio Code because you can basically run any kind of codings in this particular Visual Studio Code. Now, understand, if you're creating an application and you are building your front end also, back end also, everything in that particular application. So obviously you will not be able to switch from one software ID to another, right? Because if you're working with PyCharm in one of the software ID, which is PyCharm for Python, and you're working in Sublime for your front end, you will not be switching from one ID to different, right? So Visual Studio Code is providing you that kind of feature where you can work with both backend and front end part of coding for free. PyCharm actually gives you an option to download the free version, which is the professional one, but the community version is paid, so you have to pay for it. But you can't do that, right? So that's why Microsoft come up with this particular Visual Studio Code where everything is free for you. Even the extensions are actually free to install. So obviously Visual Studio Code is really very beneficial for any developer who is working with the bigger applications or who are starting with their coding journey also. So that's why this particular tutorial has been made. I hope you like this particular video tutorial. So now we have come up to end of this particular video, and I'm going to tell you about what all things we have basically seen in this particular tutorial. So in this particular video, we have talked about Visual Studio Code. What is it? Why is it so important? And why we are only focusing on this particular IDE? Why not any other software IDE? What is different between other IDEs and this IDE, right? Then we have talked about the other features which is provided, and we have seen practically how these features are getting worked upon when you're working with Visual Studio Code. What all different things you can do while working with Visual Studio Code and how you can do it. What is extensions? What are the shortcut keys? what is that PDF which you can download for your shortcut keys, and how you can work with it. So I hope you like this particular whole video, and I hope you'll be starting using the Visual Studio Code whenever you're working with any of your application, or you're designing, or you're writing any code. Start downloading and installing Visual Studio Code and start using it. I'll meet you very soon. Till then, bye-bye, take care, thank you. I want to introduce you to Great Learning Academy, a free initiative by Great Learning. You can access over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on trending high demand domains absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion. Check out the link in the description of the video below. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video any queries or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments.